future, I hope I can aspire to be a reasonable Palestinian after Israel no longer exists.
Eyal Rosenberg is one of a kind. The 33-year-old Israeli programmer cuts a solitary figure on the margins of Israeli society. Formerly a soldier in Israel's defense forces, he now heads a campaign for those who want to resist the draft on political grounds. But he knows his views have made him an outcast.
I'm not a true Israeli. I'm like a semi-Israeli, or I'm a bad Israeli in the eyes of the regime.
Israel is not a place for dissenters. A recent poll in Israel found that nearly 9 out of 10 Israelis not only support their army's operation in Gaza, but want it extended. Those who criticize it are met head-on and called naive and traitors. During a recent anti-war demonstration in the center of Tel Aviv, left-wing protesters were attacked by right-wing extremists chanting "Death to Arabs." Verbal attacks soon turned physically violent when protesters were beaten up on their way home. But there remains a small vocal minority who are not afraid to speak out, whatever the cost. Nadav Weiman, a former IDF soldier in the occupied territories, is one of them.
But it's very hard to talk about it in our society because it's very silenced. And that's why it took me, I think, about 2 years after I finished my army service. Then I decided, okay, that's it. I'm not going to be quiet anymore about what is happening over there. I have to speak.
Nadav now works for Breaking the Silence, an Israeli human rights organization which collects testimonies from former soldiers and tells their stories to the world.
We're talking about settlers' violence. We're talking about violence from soldiers towards Palestinians. We're talking about dozens of checkpoints in a very, very small area.
Only a few are brave enough to speak out against an institution that beats at the heart of Israeli society.
We have to remember that the soldiers that testify are just examples of what any other soldiers are doing, not because the soldiers are bad people. It just shows us, the Israeli public, the reality of what is going on there.
But most of the Israeli public are reluctant to hear a different point of view and are defending their country's bloody war in Gaza.
A group of 7 Israeli Defense Forces officers, led by Major General Yoav Har-Even, visited the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt in the Mediterranean off the coast of Sicily last week for a day of familiarization and discussions with American naval personnel. During the visit, the officers had the opportunity to observe flight and maritime operations from the deck of the carrier. The activities included an up-close view of flight operations such as catapult launches, an in-air refueling demonstration, arrested landings, search and rescue operations, and a tour of the ship's vast aircraft hangars, flight squadrons, operations center, bridge, and flight control tower. The purpose of the visit was to demonstrate the capabilities and firepower of USS Theodore Roosevelt and the Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, and to support cooperation between the U.S. and Israeli navies, as well as ensuring interoperability between the U.S. and their Israeli partners. Such visits are a means of sustaining the U.S.'s long-standing alliance with Israel.
יופי.